Gary has given you the social media version of my life. I'm going to give you the complete story in life and particularly in terms of my business. My business life started at 5 years old around a kitchen table. As Gary said, I grew up in a family business, and when I was younger I used to say I don't have very much experience, and someone reminded me I had many years, starting at 5. I started my first business at 14 years old. We lived in the countryside, you couldn't get out. So I thought, well, the only way to get out is organise buses and get everybody to the nightclub in Cookstown. I felt it was a very important community service, to be honest. And it was at 14 years old that I learnt my first lesson in self-belief. It was a Tuesday afternoon sitting in home economics, 1994. Deirdre Martin came in as a past pupil and she talked about her placement year in Marks and Spencer's in London. The minute she started talking, I said to myself, I am getting that job when I go to Jordanstown as my placement. Roll forward 8 years later and I'm walking down the street in Baker Street in London through the doors of Marks and Spencer's. It was a bit like the song Englishman in New York. I definitely was an alien. But when I look back now, that was the first most important lesson for me that I want to give you tonight. Jump and say yes instantly before your brain gets time to think about it. Because what happens is, when your brain starts to think about it, it gives you all the reasons you should not do it. Napoleon Hill says the number one reason for successful people is they make decisions quickly and change their mind slowly. And Tim Galway, who's an amazing leadership coach as well, he talks about paralysis by analysis. It's human nature, all the reasons you shouldn't do it, and then you don't. So I went on in school, went to Jordanstown, the normal routes, and started in our family business at 24. My first job was managing 120 staff in a nursing home. Most of them were there longer than my age, the staff, and I can tell you, you need serious self-belief when you're managing staff, that many staff at that age. I had years in the family business and the business was growing. I was working exceptionally hard, things were flying, and bang, one day it all came to a halt for me. I was 29 years old and it was a Monday morning and I woke up and I could not lift my head off the pillow. I had 6 months of the best days moving from bed to the sofa and back again. And of course you get the usual, no offence to typical traditional medical people, they come and tell you you're depressed. I've seen more consultants and doctors in Northern Ireland than I realised were even employed in the health service. And they all said the same thing, Cara, medically there's nothing wrong with you. And of course, what had Cara done? Cara does everything in life at 1,000 miles an hour, and I had completely burnt myself out, physically, mentally. I can tell you, and it was one of the things I wanted to say, one of the things that got me back on my feet was Hydroease. So thank you very much, Vivian. It really does work. Roll forward 6 years later, Cara didn't learn her lesson the first time, and in her mid-30s she did it all over again. And the second time round hits you like a 40-foot truck, I can tell you, a lot harder than the first time. And I suppose there was a lesson for me in my early 20s. I have to be honest, I was one of those ignorant people that thought mental health. I grew up in the countryside, as I said, you pull yourself together, you give yourself a kick up the rear end and you get on with it. Mental health is one of those things that's just talked about in the media. I learned it definitely wasn't. There was days, again, I couldn't get out of bed. I have a friend here tonight and who was with me on that journey. And it took many, many months. And people say to you, oh, just get up and get on with it. Positive mental attitude, quotes that people send you, and honest to God, like you just want to punch them in the face. I didn't have the energy to punch them in the face, I have to be honest. And I can tell you now, folks, please, if there's nothing you take away tonight from personally, learn from the mistake I made. When your health is that bad, your self-belief, your confidence, your self-worth, your frustration, you can't achieve the things you want to achieve, is on the floor. It's the one thing I struggle with the most. Slowing down is a big problem for Cara. Self-care is a big problem. So now I go to Hydroease, I look after myself, I take a stop, I exercise a lot, I drink a lot more water now, I probably party a bit less, and you know, I've learned you need to switch off, you need to switch your mind off. It's one of the things, to be honest, I'm extremely worried about in our generation now. People do not switch their mind off at all, and I can tell you it is not invincible. I thought it was. So take care of yourself, because you're no good to anybody else unless you do. So roll forward, I was very lucky in my mid-30s to get a scholarship to do an MBA in London, so off I headed, back to the big smoke again. And that's when I got my third or fourth lesson in terms of self-belief. So I walked through the door of Cass Business School, and the voices started in my head. Country bumpkin from Northern Ireland, all these big city slickers, what would you know? You're not going to pass this. You didn't get the grades in your A-level to get your first choice. You had a teacher in your A-level year told you wouldn't pass his A-level, and on it goes. So there's people now in the room going, oh, thank God, I thought I was the only one who had those voices in my head. I can tell you from coaching people, every single person has them. During that time, I thought to myself, and some of the guys have talked about it tonight, the analogy I give, your subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between what is negative and what is positive, and your subconscious mind is what controls your actions and the outcomes you get in life. So for me, the analogy I give, when you keep putting those things into your subconscious mind, you might as well be pouring poison into your body, because that is exactly what you're doing. You need to reframe it, and people say, oh, just change your thoughts. It takes discipline, time, constant work. You know, I use an analogy, people say, oh, just change your mind, just change your thoughts. It's as hard as exercise, you know, and the bad behaviours pull you back very, very easily. I was the queen of beating myself up. My two gremlins in my head were Miss High Achiever and Hurry Up. A mentor of mine said to me when I was very young, you don't want to learn to play golf, Cara? Well, I said, I don't like playing golf anyway, so I don't want to learn, but if I did, he said, you want to learn to play golf, you want to play it in 3 months, you want to play against Rory McIlroy, and you want to beat him the first time. And I said, yes, that's probably how I approach everything in life. So now those two gremlins are two people in my head. I use them as advisors to help me. They deliver really high standards when I need it. They push me on to do things quickly. When they are talking too much, I gaffer tape their mouth and I shut them up. I am much better at taking compliments now. It's a terrible trait in Northern Ireland. We deflect compliments massively. And again, you're putting the negative into your subconscious and you're pushing away the positive all the time. And I talked with my teams when I managed them, performance from positivity. I never did it with myself. Now I'm not talking about when things go wrong, guys, things go wrong. We make a mistake and it's not good enough. My standards are as high as they ever were. You need to deal with them and you need to move on. But I see in business all the time, people are focusing on what went wrong. Learn from what went wrong and move on. But the point in terms of the positivity is, how often do you say to yourself, I did a really good job today. Why did I do a good job? Even simple things. I hate exercise. I need it for my own health. So when I get up in the morning at 6:30 and it's freezing cold and I go to the PC and I walk out, as I walk out it's bright and in my head I say to myself, Cara, well done. It was a lot easier to lie in bed this morning. That has taken a lot of time and a lot of work for me. I came back from the MBA with all the energy and enthusiasm to change the world, and one of my backgrounds is healthcare, elderly healthcare, and I had this idea in my head. I wanted to disrupt the market. Now, anybody in here who's an entrepreneur, who does something for the first time, who disrupts the market, knows how tough it is. I know Andrew Cuthbert's in the audience. An amazing title in his LinkedIn profile, Innovation Maven and Serial Entrepreneur. So he will definitely know when you do something for the first time and you, as I say, you're trying to disrupt a market, the one thing you need more than anything, I can tell you, is self-belief. So I came up with this idea that I wanted a nursing home that old people wanted to go to. I wanted a nursing home the children wanted to be in terms of visiting their grandparents. It was going to be like the Merchant of Nursing Homes. So it was going to have a cinema in it, a spa, hairdressers, a nail bar, a pub. I could physically see it and feel it. And I could see the staff in it, like genuinely as clear as I could see you people today. At that time I didn't realise, and I mean Seamus and Vivian very kindly, I went on to do my coaching and learn. It's a technique of visualisation. I can tell you firsthand, guys, it works. It's scientific, it is proven, it works. On that occasion I had, when I say hundreds of people telling me I will never achieve it, that's not a joke. Very smart finance people looked at the numbers and went, won't work. You're 20 years too early, Cara. You're in the country now, Cara. You city slickers, because I live in Belfast, they think I live in the big smoke as they call it. Maybe in Belfast, wouldn't work in Magherafelt. Not a chance. Far too advanced, down here in the country, we like things simple, basic, and I said it is going to work. I believe elderly people in Northern Ireland deserve that quality of life. I was extremely lucky and I had an amazing team of staff around me, and we did achieve it. We opened it in May, we filled it in November, and they're now building an extension to it. We won 2 awards, my manager won awards, and the place is outstanding in terms of... Thank you. After that, I went on at the same time to train as a coach, so I most definitely second everything that everyone has said tonight. This is scientific stuff. Here is keep putting yourself into uncomfortable, difficult situations that you're scared of, because it's repetition, and the more times you do it and the more times you're able to manage it. You know, do you think the people, I haven't spoken to them, do you think some of the speakers tonight weren't worried today about standing up here tonight? They do it and they do it, and they get techniques to manage it and use it as fuel to drive them forward. The end of my story, or the end of my journey to date, ends on the 18th of January this year. That was the day that I left the Macklin Group, my family business. It's all I ever did, it's all I ever wanted to do. It was my hopes, dreams, ambitions, and on that day I decided no, it's time I did something else. So on the 19th of January I'm sitting in my office, surrounded by my massive team of me, myself and I. And anyone who goes from having 600 staff around them, an award-winning company, huge success, and that safety blanket, and now you're sitting on your own going, geez, where's the printer? How do you fix this? The thing that I thought about that day was, it's going to be interesting when I go out into the business community in Northern Ireland. People are going to say to me, Cara, you're mental. You have lost your mind. You have just left security, the safety, this amazing business that you've been very instrumental in growing, to leave and go out on your own. I have to be honest, I didn't really care about that. The bit I was blown away by was people saying to me, Cara, you're so brave. God, I could never do that. You know, there's so many things in my life I wanted to do. I don't have the courage. I'm in this job, I hate it. I have to pay the mortgage. I need to stay. All I can say to you folks tonight is you don't need to stay, and you do have the courage, and you need to write your own story. You will not have the life you deserve. You will not have the self-belief that you deserve unless you write your own story, and I mean write it from your heart. As I look back on my journey, one of the things that was most instrumental for me was the people I surrounded myself with. That's in the positive and negative. I have genuinely the most amazing people in my life who are close to me in my personal life. I could not have got through the tough times without them. They quite literally were there to lift me off the floor when I needed it. I've had the most amazing, and still do, business mentors, coaches from I was 24 years old. The days in that nursing home when I'm like, God, the one day I thought, geez, maybe I've stepped too far this time, Cara. And they rang me and said, Cara, no you haven't, you can do this. I've seen the negative side as well, and it comes in 2 forms. We've seen it in the corporate world. People chip away at you, a manager who you're more capable of. But I've also seen it in personal situations. It can be your family, it can be friends who are close to you, you've grown up with, you're becoming more successful, and they chip away at you. It's like a drip and tap. Sometimes they do it because they don't want you to push yourself too far and fail and get hurt. But I have to be honest, sometimes they do it because they are jealous of your success. I'm going to be pretty blunt about this. You need to get them out of your life. That's another subconscious message. Now, I'm not talking about people who challenge you or don't agree with you. I have plenty of those people, but you need to surround yourself, and particularly the people who are close to you, with people who believe you, believe in you, support you, and you know when your back's against the wall that they're there for you. I'm very lucky. I've seen very, very successful people in my life, and successful people don't have any less problems or challenges than anyone else. They just look at the opportunities and they take action to sort them out. And I'm going to reflect, firstly, a massive round of applause, I think, for Gary in terms of what he has achieved tonight. And another person in the room who has achieved equally as well in the last week is Gavin Wall. These 2 guys have organised 2 amazing events in Northern Ireland. They have done it outside of their day job and everything else they do, one of my backgrounds is hospitality, and when we talked at the beginning, I said, are you mental? Like, this is the toughest thing to do, getting people here. Both of those people, one we've seen on social media in the last week, have had major challenges organising these events. But the one thing they both have in common, they just bounced. This went wrong, you know, getting a speaker at 6 o'clock today for someone who dropped out in the same sector to land here tonight. So I'm going to leave you with 3 things in terms of my story and lessons that I've learned. Jump instantly and say yes, and do not let your brain think about it. Write your own story from your heart. Don't do what your parents thought you should do. Don't do what your friends tell you to do. Find out what your purpose is in life and write your own story. And last but not least, Ralph Waldo Emerson said, what lies before you and what lies behind you is absolutely nothing to what lies within you. Thank you. Well done. Congratulations.
Thank you.